focus. Hi, welcome to Queer Life, Shruti. So we're going to jump right into things. We've given ourselves a little warm up, which the listeners don't need to know about. And one of the vague questions I like to start off with is, what is your story? Right? This lovely broad question. Answer it how you will.
You know what? I was thinking of something because I have had like a stressful day.
Okay.
It's like every day is an anxious day.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just thinking, like, can I curse in your podcast?
Oh, of course you can. We have a warning that goes out.
Okay. So I think you'll have a bunch of warnings because I am like so articulate. I pepper my thoughts with cuss words. So I was like, okay, yeah, I was disappointed with something because, rejections, usual shit. So I was like, fuck this, because you know what? I've been through hell and back. I've been through hell and back. So try your worst. I'm going to like survive. That's my story. How do you like that?
Concise and gives us no details whatsoever. Precisely the kind of stories I like.
Because I'm so sick of being this anxious person. I know that's me. I know I've been through like all sorts of, crests and troughs of depression. And I'm fucking sick of it sometimes. I'm like,
yeah,
this is what I want to be. It's like you wanting to climb out of a shell and say like, fuck this, I'm stronger than this. And I'm not that anxiety is weakness, that's not what I mean to say, but it's like you become somebody else, and you really want to morph into a dragon or whatever else, some days. So it was one of those days, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to be anxious. I'm going to survive this because you know what, I have survived worse, much worse. So I think, I think that's my story. I think I just view myself as a survivor. That's what,
Yeah.
Whatever life is throwing at you. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a downer for a bit, but you get up and you get on with it.
It's not like you have a choice, man.
I know. Yeah, I read this quote many, many years ago in some Reader's Digest or something. There was a period when I used to love Reader's Digest. And it was some interview with some survivor. You know how they had these stories, right?
Yeah.
And he said something like, yeah, tenacity is easier when you have no choice. So I'm like, yeah.
I'm going to jot that down. That's going to feature in the title.
So yeah, if you had like multiple choices, you could be like, okay, fuck this, I'm not going to deal with this. But you have no choice. So what are you going to do? So
I think it's like there is this image of mental illness or mental health as when you have a diagnosed issue with mental health. There is this image that you consistently wallow in it, right? Like you are consistently depressed and that's your state of being. And I think no one really talks about how your own mental state can get tiring for you and you don't want it anymore, right?
Yeah. I think it's more out of body sometimes, It's like, I know this is me. I know I have a diagnosed condition. I'm taking medication for it, but you're so tired of it. It's like a part of your personality that you're not able to access because this blocks your path, all the time. So some days it's like, no, I'm just, I'm not saying that's like a thing against anxiety. Of course, you can't help it, but yeah, some days it's just tiring. Some days it's like, okay, I know I have to go forward. There is no choice, as we said. So I'm not going to sit and, I'm just not going to think about it. Some days it works. Some days, of course, it doesn't work.
It's a work in progress. Do you want to kind of go into a little bit of the history of your mental health?
Yeah.
Is that a place you want to start at?
Yeah, no problem. Because that defines everything.
Power through, yeah.
So as you know, I grew up in a very abusive household. My father was the primary abuser in the house. So I guess you know how it works in such a house. It's just, you're overwhelmed, you can't breathe, you're always walking on eggshells, you're not you know, you don't even have an idea of what you are. So that's how I was raised. I saw my mother, you know, not being able to parent, not being able to be herself because she was just constantly beaten down, you know, literally and otherwise. So when I got out of the house, that was when I joined college in Pune. That's where we met.
Yes, we did.
That's when I realized, okay, it's great to be out because that was my first taste of freedom, so to say, but I had no idea what I am. Because I had never lived on my own. You know, this was the first time I was buying my own clothes, as ridiculous as it sounds. I was picking my courses, picking classes, doing so many things. It was scary. It really was. Because I was not sure if I can do it. I have never done it. But yeah, that's where the journey started. And that's where also the realization came that all is not well, because you grow up in a family like that, you start thinking, maybe this is how all families are. You don't really have an alternate narrative to base your life on. But then you get out and you see, okay, happy families exist, you know, at least at the outset, you know. Yeah. I mean, they are not like cursing at each other all the time. They're not yelling at each other. Like peaceful evenings are a thing, you know. Happy car rides are a thing. Happy mothers, you know, they exist. Like they have a say in the household, stuff like that, which I think a lot of people with normal upbringing take for granted. It was all a revelation for me. So I was discovering it. And I also discovered that clearly something's not okay. I knew I would have problems with anger because that was the default emotion in the house. So I knew I would struggle with it. I would struggle with irritability and anger. And, you know, I knew that's how I was probably going to express myself. But I also realized that there's something more missing, you know. I feel like an empty shell sometimes, you know. So this was like the early realizations. Of course, I had no language for it. I had no way to express it and seek help, you know. So real help in the sense of like medical help would come much, much later. So it would come when I would take a break and go back home, and my mother decides to separate from her husband, and I just crash, you know, I just flatline, and my mother's shocked because she's like, what is going on? I don't know how to deal with this. But thankfully, at least she knows a bit. She sort of knows that, okay, maybe this is depression. Of course, it's caused by what all has happened in the house. And I think I should seek help. So all of these are very powerful realizations when you think about it, even though they sound quite simple, because we grow up in circles where, you know, you don't know the terms, you don't know where to go, should we go, all the stigma, you know. And my mother didn't care for it, and I'm so grateful for that. So she sought out a friend, she suggested someone, and that's the first time I had a diagnosis, which was major depression. That's what he said, but I think he meant clinical depression. I don't know if there is a demarcation there. And he said generalized anxiety disorder. And he told me, clearly you've had it for years. I really don't know how you have survived so long without any medication or any sort of help. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know either. By that point, I've held jobs, I've studied, I've moved cities, I've been in relationships. It's if you think about it, it's mind-boggling to me that I had no help. You know, I had no mentorship, no real parent figure, because mom couldn't do much. You know, she couldn't make decisions, and she didn't have the exposure to the world to actually help.
Mm.
So yeah, that's when I got the medication. The doctor was awful, but he could give me a prescription, which is what I wanted. Because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to a quack and revealing my story and re-traumatizing myself, but I clearly need medicines, which I got for 3 months, and I could, literally get out of bed, do some stuff. That's when I moved to Bangalore. And when I moved to Bangalore, my mom insisted that, okay, now you're in a better place, I guess. So maybe you can find a more progressive professional. And thankfully, I find one in the first go. I know a lot of persons have a lot of trouble finding a good counselor in the first place. So this person was very progressive, very queer, affirmative, had continuing experience in helping, persons with suicidal ideation, gender-based violence. So I didn't have to look too far. And it was good. I stayed in very active therapy for like 2.5 years. It was, you know how therapy is, right? Therapy is like vomiting. I still remember I would be extremely tense the whole day on the day that I had a session, because I knew it's like, oh my God, I have to again dig up memories that are so bad. And admit to being bothered by it and diminished by it. And I distinctly remember after every session, I'd be hungry. I would be ravenous. Like I would just get out, I'll go to a nearby bakery and like hog, It was so weird to feel this physical manifestation of what was happening.
Right.
But I thought it was good. I could feel that it was a purge, it was just coming out of me. And it really, really helped. I stayed off medication, but last year I had a diagnosis again of clinical depression, but she said it's sort of like a start. It was disappointing because I thought, oh shit, I have worked for years and years on this, But then that's mental health, and recovery is rarely linear, you go up and down.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean that you have failed or all your progress doesn't count. But yeah, because I was dealing with the work situation, which was, I think, triggering very like family sort of, that sort of an environment. Like, because surprisingly, a gynecologist told me that maybe, because I had gone for a bunch of tests, I was feeling very ill, and I thought, okay, let me get myself physically tested. And she's like, you're absolutely fine. I think what's happening is mental, and maybe some old trauma is getting triggered.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that's true, because the person I was working most closely with, she was so similar to that person in the house. And that feeling of helplessness and voicelessness that I had at work was also so similar to how I was as a child. I didn't think about it, I just thought that, yeah, okay, maybe it's just this organization is not for me. But then when the doctor said that, I was like, yeah, that's so true. It's just, it's that personality type, which is just, messing with my...
it just doesn't mix.
Yeah. And I'm just not able to be okay around them, even though it was work that I can do in my sleep. So yeah, I think that work situation triggered it, and then I had to go back on medication. But thankfully, it was not like a major flare-up. Yeah, and I took a sabbatical for the first time in my professional life. So that's like first time in like some 16 years. I took a break of sorts, and I said, okay, I need to give myself time. Just because so much had gone on, so many shifts, so many changes, and I never had time to breathe or absorb all that had happened. So Yeah, I think that sabbatical helped. But yeah, I think for me, depression is always bubbling under, you know. It's like you want to shield yourself from experiences that may trigger it. But how can you do that? So yeah, that's the reality of it. Anxiety is like a daily experience, though I don't take medication for it. I try to find tools within myself to cope with it. And I do okay, unless it's like really, really bad. So I have like one SOS sort of medication. So yeah, that's what it is. Oh yeah, last year, surprisingly, or maybe not, the doctor also told me that I have OCPD traits. So it's obsessive compulsive personality disorder and not just like OCD. So she's like perfectionism and very like, which I've struggled with a lot. I'm saying it like it's in the past. I still struggle with it. And a lot of this holding on to values, like, okay, this is how it's to be done, and you are like a passionate activist for it, so that those are some of those traits. She's like, you don't have like I won't diagnose you with it, but I do see a few traits. And but that's something that you can work on. So it's like, I guess there is stuff to do. So now I'm not in therapy, but I will get on to it soon. That's my plan.
That's always the plan. Yes. It gets bad enough, we'll go to the therapist. Till then we can manage.
Because I'm thinking of changing, and that is a lot. Because I got through the vomiting and now I have to get back to it.
Always vomiting, just saying.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, if I can like rush through that phase where I'm just like recapping my life, and then I'll get to this point and then I start talking about what's bothering me right now, I'll be happy with that. But I don't think I can do that. So
so I don't know if you noticed, I've been jotting down things while you speak. And before I kind of, I'm sorry?
Makes me feel very important that you have like points.
What I was going to get into is, so you and me knew each other in college. That's where I first met you. And it's ironic and a little bit sad that everything that you're describing about your time in life, about not knowing, to me, you seem like the most knowledgeable person there, right? You were one of the first people who was so articulate about things and about things I had no idea about. I mean, I was used to being the most aware person in a room, in the sense, like, aware of things happening around the world. Like I went on Bonvita quiz contest, that kind of awareness, not like self-awareness and emotional awareness. No, none of that shit. But like someone who had more factoids than I did, and someone who was just so articulate and brave. And like literally the introduction to this podcast says that you were one of the first human people I admired as a human person. Oh, oh right. Okay. Now that we've established that embarrassing fact. And it is what it is, right? Because you kind of always end up looking like so much stronger than you believe yourself to be. And then again, with all this, strength becomes your defining factor, right? And this, So have you had moments where you felt, I mean, of course you've had moments where you felt you weren't strong enough, but what does strength mean to you at this point?
Yeah, I want to start with saying that all that you said about me, I felt about you. I really was like, so in awe of you. You were so articulate. You were so into theater. I was like, I want to be like her. And you used to come out with like scripts. Like, how the hell does someone come out with like whole ass scripts? I mean, I remember I used to tell Prerna that I really look up to Hina. She's like so awesome, and she can like I mean, you realized plays. You were not just daydreaming, So that was awesome to me. So yeah, right back at you, darling.
Wow.
Um, what does strength mean to me? Yeah, like you said, you know what? I have always, I think, looked kind of boringly stable,
Hmm. Hmm.
boringly nerdy.
Hmm.
But I was, when you grow up in an environment like that, and I'm sorry if I keep going back to it because so much starts there, you learn to act very well, you know
Hmm.
really are acting so many times, because at school I was acting like I was normal. I was scoring well. I don't know how I was managing to study, but I was studying fairly well, except in mathematics for some reason. um, so yeah, I think this whole facade of pulling off normalcy is is something that maybe you will notice in a lot of survivors, because that's how
Hmm.
you survive.
Right. Yeah.
uh, as a child, where do you go? Okay, even
Hmm.
if I happen to have a meltdown and cry and reveal my truth, I still go
Hmm.
back home, you know,
Yeah.
and I have to face the consequence of having revealed the truth.
Hmm.
So the only thing you can do is just behave like nothing's going on.
Hmm.
And that man is the playwright and the puppet master. So if he
Hmm.
laughs, we laugh. If
Right.
he's pissed, so we just retreat into a corner. So you kind of get used to being that person. So in college, I think I was quite unformed almost. I didn't know
Hmm.
what I was about. So I was just continuing that, okay, this is how I survived school, this is how I'm gonna survive college.
Right.
I think my strength would be in just, it's a hard question. Because I
Like,
also, yeah, because you know what, Hina, it's not that I hate that question, but I also push back against it, because I think
hmm.
I suffer a lot because people assume that I'm strong
Hmm. Hmm.
and responsible. Like
Hmm.
I am the sole caregiver of Amma right now, and
Hmm.
so many people have just left the field because they're like, yeah, Shruti is there, so
Yeah.
she'll take care of it. And
Hmm.
people forget that I exist with my own needs and ambitions and
Hmm.
bad days and all of that. So I think strength fucks you over sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, this word resilience, which I've heard a lot in human rights and development as of late.
Yeah.
It's just annoying to listen to that,
Hmm.
because I don't want to be resilient. You
Hmm.
are setting up situations where I'm forced to be resilient, and
Hmm.
then giving me an award for being resilient. That sounds like a bad deal.
Hmm.
So I think strength for me has been not losing sight of myself, even though so much has happened. And you know sometimes I feel that I'll forgive myself if I'm like superbly bitter and just a horrible person, maybe, I don't know. But I refuse to be that. I i
Hmm.
want to laugh. I don't think that's me at all. I'm not a consequence of what all happened to me.
Hmm.
I'm still somebody else. I just there is a Shruti that is separate from all these experiences, and
Hmm.
I still want to be that, and I still seek that on a daily basis. And I think my mother also has inspired that. She has survived so much, but every day I see love and concern. I see the need to share, to laugh, to sing, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to be inspired by, you know? So I see strength there. I see also strength in realizing moments where I've been shitty, where I have, not the good person. I am the toxic person. So I think having that awareness, being myself, as tough as it is
Hmm.
what I feel is strength.
Hmm.
What do you think?
See, right now not going through a phase, but this past year again just has been difficult, all around. So my narrative is barely unique, but I kind of had a massive uptick in my ADHD across this year, to a point where I couldn't function. I couldn't remember things. I would walk into a room and not know why I was there. And this happened like several times an hour, not even like a few times a week. And it just became really stressful. There was also a physical health aspect of hyperglycemia and all that nonsense, which we don't need to get into at this point. But I think the reason I asked this question was because the strength and resilience conversation is becoming a big thing right now because of everything the pandemic has put us through. And I think for me, it was, I had to say enough. I had to take a step back because functioning was becoming a problem, right? And I think, again, there's this resonance in the sense when you say that you want to be yourself, and yourself separate from that, the things that have happened to you. And I want to get into what does that mean for you on a day-to-day? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are some of the actions? What are some of the moments of yourself, of being yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, these are long stories, but life journey has got Amma and me together. So we live together in a house. I'm unmarried. I'm 35. I have no plans to marry. I'm not in a relationship. And I have no plans to be in a relationship because it's hard. It's hard to be in relationships. We have suffered because of relationships that came because of our parents and relatives and all that jazz. And honestly, both of us are so tired. We're exhausted, So we're like, okay, we're going to be single and live like single women, do what makes us happy, because for Amma, it's been a much longer journey, of course. She's in her 50s and her childhood was tough. Her married life, of course, was tough. So it's almost like now is when she's living, doing what she wants to do. And for me, being able to facilitate that, help that, inspire that, or in any way help is just such an honor, I'm so happy that I can be there for her and help her ambitions. So it's such a joy to watch her get up in the morning, sing to herself, have her chai, read the newspaper. Such simple pleasures without the specter of violence or somebody yelling or something being thrown at the wall. Or it's been a few years, but we still feel so blessed to be able to live peacefully,
Right.
Like an uneventful day is so beautiful, because we don't want the constant heartache of guessing somebody's actions, just constantly doubtful whether we piss them off, stuff like that. So for her, that's been the reality for so many decades. So now she's enjoying, and that is my first point of joy. And on an everyday basis, I think waking up, thinking about one, my mother, and second, myself is such a privilege. Because imagine if I was in a relationship, was I married, or maybe had kids, or I don't know. There is so much that splits your focus.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I don't have to split my focus beyond too far from what I want to do. So when I wake up, okay, today I'm feeling this or that, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to listen to, this is what I'm going to read. That simple awareness of self and the ability to just focus on myself, I really cherish. And I think that's one of the biggest manifestations of the life we have chosen. So, because I have friends, because when they get up, they're like, okay, I have to think about, did I get too late waking up? How is everybody thinking? Like, what is everybody thinking about that? The kids saying blah, blah, blah. I mean, kudos to them. That's the life they want to live. Good luck to them. But that's not what I want to do. and just being able to live what I want to do is such an everyday joy, that
Right.
okay, I woke up and I thought about, oh, there is fruit in the fridge. That's what I want to eat today. There's nothing deep, that's what I want to think about. And it's about me. And
Yeah.
I think that's the greatest thing. Of course, there are pressures of, oh yeah, you got to earn, you have deadlines and all of that. But yeah, and of late also the ability to just speak about mental health, about violence, without getting too affected. Because of course, it's been a few years that I've been speaking about it, so it has gotten easier.
Yeah.
And it's very freeing. I don't want to hide it anymore. I'm in the process of applying for jobs now, and I'm so glad every time I come across a form which is like, do you want to declare a disability? I'm like, yeah, yes, please. And I just want to be open about it, and I don't want it to be considered a liability later, which has happened so many times. I'm sure you have had maybe such experiences, and it's so diminishing to be in that position where people look at you like, oh God, I don't think, she can do what we hired her to do. So yeah, I think I find them to be like little landmarks in my life that, okay, this makes it more open and a little more open and a little more open. And this is my truth. It took me a long time to realize that, yeah, my life and the way I am does come under the purview of disability, which I didn't think about.
Yeah.
Ever. I think it's been just a year or so that I've been thinking about it, and it took me some time. I even asked a few folks, should I start declaring it? Is it because they had their doubts? They're like, what is that gonna do? It probably will make things more difficult for you. So I'm like, not that things are that easy right now. I might as well put it out there and say, hey, this is coming from this particular situation, and I hope you don't make it a marker of my character or talent or whatever else. So yeah, that's also been freeing. So, I think I'm able to look inwards, do so many things only because the focus area is smaller now. Otherwise, it's like you forget, you don't have the time.
Yes.
To
yeah. Like memory is such a thing when you're dealing with depression and with anxiety.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Even writing lists doesn't help sometimes. It's just memory just.
Yeah. I have, like, when I look back, I have so many empty spots in my memory. So many. Like I have had people ask me, like, you remember we met this person? I'm like, no. But they're like, no, we did. So I'm like, I don't know. It's weird what gets erased and why. But I have a lot of spots. Some are very clearly because they were too traumatic to remember, maybe. Some even like mundane stuff has just never got saved in the brain for some reason. I don't know.
Just got flushed out. I think one of the weirdest things about my therapy experience, not weird, but one of the things about my therapy experience was these stupid memories started coming back. Right. And suddenly, like I used to be very proud of the fact that I remember nothing. That I remember my childhood is a blur. Happy little blur. Bye, baby. And then therapy started, and just a little more mindfulness, and all these stupid memories come back. And I don't know which one's better. I don't know whether it was better to be walking through life going la 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 la, or going no. But
I know.
Again, it's not a choice.
I get you. I understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Work has been a big conversation with you. Work life and the toxicity at workplaces and workplace culture. And I know that you just said that you're looking for a job, and I've known that for a while. What are what are some of the do's and don'ts you have in place for yourself?
When searching for a job?
Yes,
Or
yeah,
at work?
both. Either one, whichever works, just go for it.
The other realization I've had, and which I told you, I think the last time, we were just babbling about a lot of things. I realized the importance of the kind of people you're working with, because earlier in my 20s, of course, I was jumping all over the place because I had no mentorship. I was just, oh, maybe let me try this or let me try that. I was like one kid in a candy shop. Except the candies were really rotten and exploitative. But it helped me pick up a lot of experience, like I worked with startups, I worked with NGOs, I got paid like terribly. It was
but it looks good on the CV.
Yeah, or it looks very flighty and flaky and whatever else. It depends on the kind of person who's looking at your CV. But I think personally, I really gained a lot of perspective. But now in my 30s, after so many bad experiences, especially bad managers, I want to add a caveat. I don't want to sound like a person who's like constantly just complaining against managers. I know management is hard. I know leading a team, no matter how small, is tough. Especially now when so many things are evolving and people are not, genuflecting in front of a capitalist horrible system. And now the expectations are much different, be it diversity, mental health, disability, so much else. It's not the same workplace. So I do have some empathy towards the leaders, but I also find most of them are just talking and not doing enough. And that is I don't know why that is more painful for me. If you are an out and out horrible boss, I somehow am like appreciative because I have no doubts about what you are about. But if you're like giving me platitudes and then not following up on it, that seems like a harder like betrayal to take, And I've faced that a lot, especially because I work in the development sector, a lot of so-called feminist organizations. We have a long road to travel. It's a tough road to travel, I understand. So one of the things I have started to look for or research about is the person I'm going to be working with. If I can get more information about them, great. If I can read, I don't know, Glassdoor reviews or whatever else. And the greatest thing is if I can connect with other colleagues, former colleagues or whatever, and check with them what is the truth about working in a place like that. Because on the outside, a lot of organizations look great, especially when we are approaching them for, work which affects social justice, inclusion. These are heavy matters. These are life and death matters. So you can't go in and say, yeah, your mission statement's great, but I see that you're not doing it and I'm okay with it. I don't know. You can't be okay with it. You can't sit okay with contradictory, ideas and actions. And so I do look out for it as much as I can. I think I also, when it comes to interviews, I'm very cautious that it doesn't become like a one-way, oh, I'm so thankful for you for offering me a job sort of a conversation, but also me checking with them, like, what have you done recently?
Right.
If it's an opening that has come up recently, so I do ask, why is it open? Did the person leave for some reason?
Right.
Why did they move on? I appreciate openness about that. And I do question them about mental health policies, sensitivity to disability, inclusion. Because a lot of companies claim to be inclusive, but don't really have policies in place. And that gets problematic later. Because then they're scrambling about and they're like, okay, what do we do now? This situation has come in. So I'm like, we should have had policy in place.
Right.
And the other thing that I look for is I'm like in my earlier professional years, I was very enamored by roles, the titles. Now they don't enamor me as much because also a lot of organizations make up their own titles. It could mean
Yes,
anything.
yes.
Yeah. So, but you look at what does that role entail? Whom do you report to? How much autonomy do you have? And like you said, work, yeah, I have a very, I don't know, tricky relationship with work because I give it too much importance. And that is a therapy point for me also. How do
Yeah.
I break that? But
Mm.
also work has given me so much self-confidence. It has given me the
Mm.
money to break away from toxic situations. I've been able to travel because of work. I've been able to meet a lot of wonderful people because of work. So it's very difficult for me to not view work as like at the core of so many things I do, and also work, which is not really, oh, okay, I'm like 9 to 5 and I'm done and I don't think about it. It's the kind of work where you engage with people. It's causes that you feel about, you personally advocate for. How do you not think about it all the time? So
Yeah.
I am on the journey right now. Like, can I do it? Because it's exhausting being in this sector, as you could, as you can understand. There is also a lot of feeling of disappointment because you go through so many organizations, meet a lot of people, and they really don't match up to what you thought they did or were about. So it makes you think that, okay, where is the real work happening then? And where do I stand in this landscape? So yeah, these are harder questions to deal with, but I am thinking about them more and more, especially if I'm applying to particular roles. Because I'm a communications professional, that's what I usually apply for. So I'm thinking, okay, what am I bringing to this table? Where is my privilege situated, and how am I going to question that? How am I going to work against that? And how do I grow? Because of course there are the practicalities of how much do you earn and blah blah, but what makes you stay is, these are the things that makes you stay.
Yeah.
At least personally, though I have had people, and I don't know what your experience is, I have had people say that you're just attaching so much there, and that's why you are just constantly disappointed. So I don't know.
I think this has, of course, been said to me as well. Like, it's a job, leave the job at the job. And in that sense, the development sector and the creative sector are very similar, right? Because you care about what you do and you care about it beyond work hours. I think I have come to accept that that is not a possible state of being for me. I cannot not care about something that I'm doing. And because like by the time you're 35, you've had enough work experience to realize what kind of worker you are. And for me, it's very important to note that if there has to be this sense of belonging, of value, and of values shared. And I can't do it without that. And I'm accepting that. I accept that, and that's my default state. I also like this point that you spoke about, which is also a point in my therapy, about assigning your own human worth to the work that you do, right? Where because it's also so much easier because everyone identifies you by the work you do. Also, it is something to be done, right? It is the thing you do. I don't know how else to explain it, but that's what it is. That is what you wake up for.
Ask you, right? What do you do? And you say it's our job. We don't say make coffee and make merry. We say, okay, this is what I do. And also for kids, maybe it's it's a little different for you. For kids who grew up with no voice, no
Yeah.
vocal appreciation, and if you're getting that at the job, you
Yes.
really do start appreciating that, because
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is proof that I can do certain things well. And, in terms of rating or increments or whatever, there is, empirical proof that yes,
Yeah.
I'm something, I'm growing. And that's very heady initially, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've never heard of this, because I was straight A's in school, but
Yeah,
I
you
was
were.
ever being told that, oh, I'm proud of you, or
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe had I heard that, I would not be so beholden to that kind of appreciation at work. Maybe
Mm.
it's wearing off a little. I'm not saying it's as strong, but it is there.
Mm.
It's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. It's also this, you get this privilege by virtue of being articulate, right?
Definitely.
Because it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you sound like you do,
Yeah,
you get a lot of value in organization, especially in the communication sector, right? Like
definitely.
you sound like you could talk to the British. Here you go, ma'am. Here's our hearts on a platter for you. But
It's
that's how
annoying.
it starts. Yeah.
Annoying, especially when how many people I've had in my life who are just like yapping the right things but not freaking doing any of those things. I fucking hate those people. And
You can continue unmuted myself.
and I definitely don't want to be one of them. Definitely
Mhm.
articulation, and especially articulation in English has advantages in India.
Very much
Definitely.
so. Very
Yeah.
much so.
But yeah, when you're working in this sector, you want people who walk their talk. You just don't want them to be saying a lot of nice new agey things and not really putting in place systems which affect that change.
Mm.
So if you're saying that we are not judging your caliber when you reveal your diagnosis, I
Mm.
need proof of that. You can't just say it and do the complete opposite
Yeah.
and expect me to be thankful because you just said it. I'm really sick of that, because yeah, that's a major you know annoyance for me, because I have seen a lot of persons sit at panels, say a lot of things, and come back and be horrible bosses, be very belittling, be very not welcoming of voices. And it annoys you, because then you are again in a space which has this facade of being different and holier than thou, but is based on the same privileges and hierarchies that you see otherwise, which you claim to be fighting against.
Mm.
And that is the truth. So I cannot deny those privileges as a person who was educated in English, speaks in English, works in English, is a cis woman, is an upper caste woman in India. So for me, if an organization is not looking at these things and not putting in systems in place to counter those things, to challenge those things, then I don't know what you're doing. And then your words start grating me, because I don't want to hear that. I don't, because you're not doing anything about it. So I think I lost track of your question, but yeah.
Which is fine. I didn't even remember I asked a question. No, I want to ask you about, I keep announcing my intention to ask questions. I have to figure out how not to do that, but for today we'll continue. How did you land up in the development sector? Because I know that's not where you started your working life.
No, I started in corporate sector because I thought that's where I belonged. That's where the money was, and I really didn't know what else to do. So I worked 3 years in corporate sector in 2 companies, fully like got flatlined, wanted to just jump off somewhere.
Mm.
But I just was like, okay, let me wait for like 3 months or 4 months till my money lasts. I didn't have a lot to start with. And I thought, okay, I want to write. So maybe newspapers is a place I can start. So you remember Professor Apte from...
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
for reference, we should clarify who she is. Professor Apte was our English professor in college. Yes, that's correct, right?
She never taught me, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I got to be her minion of sorts because she used to look after the debate competitions and all that. I was very, very into it. And then she, for whatever reason, took a liking to me, and we had a good relationship. I'm very upset at myself that I didn't maintain it well after. So she had a contact in a Marathi newspaper based in Pune, and I met him, and then he connected me to Indian Express Pune, and they said, okay, we have a test, why don't you give the test? We're not very insistent on you having a degree. So I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. So I gave the test, I passed, and I joined. So that's where the writing thing started. I lasted 2 years, then I thought I want to freelance. So then I started jumping around here and there. And then Indian Express was a turning point for me because at Indian Express, I interviewed a lot of NGO founders, workers, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of artists. So this was the first time I was getting a peep into what I could do otherwise, you know, because I studied economics and I was like, okay, boring. I don't know what I'm going to do. But here I was like, okay, there is no rules to admission, you know? So I was like, okay, why not? I want to try, I want to write, I want a more creative, fluid sort of space where I want to exist. So it was very refreshing to meet these artists. So then I started freelancing, I started writing for a magazine, I started volunteering at NGOs. Then I got very close to a person who had founded an NGO in Pune. So I joined as a consultant. I was on the board of the NGO also. So that's where like sort of another layer sort of opened up, and I'm like, okay, I exist in a very privileged bubble. So the most humble thing I can do is whatever skills I have, I use towards catalyzing what could be a good mission to push through. So here, this is Hope for the Children Foundation in Pune. They work with single mothers, they work with children. They've made a lot of strides in the past decade that they've been active. So their communications came handy, though I didn't come from an MSW background, but they wanted, they wanted someone to do social media. They wanted someone to write reports, and they were very happy if somebody could like proofread, stuff like that. So that's when it sort of opened up, okay, this is something I can do. And I realized a lot of NGOs wanted that sort of help. They wanted documentation. They wanted to make forays into social media. They're like, okay, can you start pages for us? Can you start posting? Can you design basic posters and stuff like that? So that's where it sort of opened up, and I'm like, okay, I do have a place, because till then I'm thinking it's like a qualification equals job sort of pipeline. And here I'm thinking that's not necessary. There were so many places they never asked me for a CV, or they took me for my word, and they're like, okay, you're volunteering, so why don't you do this or that? So as sometimes chaotic as it can get, it's also a great learning sphere, because you end up doing so much. So many of your roles are fluid. Sometimes you wake up and I'm like, okay, today I think I have to take on this role, which you have never done before. So it really taught me a lot. And that's where I was like, this is where I want to be. I was not thinking in terms of a career as such, but I was thinking that I cannot be part of a mechanical workplace.
Right.
where I'm just like a cog in some wheel that
Someone
I don't.
else's machine. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and the machine is just far beyond.
Yeah.
And also the conversations in the corporate circles are so, and I don't want to generalize and demonize them, but the
But you can.
the circle that I was in
Hmm.
was so materialistic, it was bothersome to me.
Hmm.
Especially because it was not my ambition at all. Like, I didn't give a fuck if I didn't have a car by this age, or
Hmm.
wear this brand, or didn't have a flat in this particular locality. Like,
Hmm.
that was not what was in my head, and that was not a
Hmm.
priority for me. So for me, it was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't motivate me.
Hmm.
So if it does to you, good for you. But then it didn't. But also the truth was that then I was like properly single, in the sense I was not, there was no dependent around. I was
Hmm.
not responsible for anybody. So I could really
Right.
just jump around also. That is also
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And then I look back to a lot of these persons and I'm like, yeah, they were family people. They had kids, and, you know,
Hmm.
everybody's experience can't be compared. But I was in that state that I was like, I feel suffocated in these conversations, you know, like,
Hmm.
who cares?
Right.
So yeah, I think it helped that I could make do with smaller salaries, and because
Hmm.
it is difficult. Not everybody can enter the sector, and you
Yeah.
can't always say, oh, why don't you do this job? Because everybody's life is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's priorities are different. So you can't have that one scale of judgment for everybody. But I'm just glad that I could do it in my 20s, and it really opened up a lot of perspectives. And working with women is just incredible. It's
Hmm.
like, uh, I have come from a family where there were certain privileges, but the women didn't have voices. They never got a chance to realize their ambition, never got a chance to study, even raise their kids on their own terms.
Hmm.
So being able to write their stories, present their stories in some fashion, and just be their part of a support system which can help them be the center as they deserve to be, is a privilege, you know, and that's what I want to do. If it helps me earn a decent income, good, because now situations have changed. But yeah, I think that's where I started. So I'm not saying that I'm very astute all the time. Of course, I'm not. And unfortunately, when you're searching for jobs, you're forced to compromise,
Right.
belong to organizations whose actions you don't 100% agree to.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually think that if you can assert your privilege, your voice, do it. That's
Right.
important, because, like, in the last organization, I I was part of a meeting when this person said something transphobic,
Hmm.
and I was appalled, because this is a fund which interacts with trans persons,
Hmm.
and is in the sort of giving position, because
Hmm.
you approve applications. They look at it as if it passes muster or not. So there is
Hmm.
like a power dynamic there, and I was shocked, because I, one, of course, expected better. And second, how can you harbor these feelings while occupying that position? Even if it's in the whole scheme of the world, it's a small position. But you, if that's what you have in your heart, how are you ever going to be unbiased? How do you look at these issues? Who are you to judge? Who are you to decide anything, what anybody's need is for grants or funds? So for me, that's not just like a thing of semantics. It's a value issue here. It's a human rights issue. So you can say that, no, I slipped up, or I like, no, you didn't. You said something which you clearly believe in. And that makes me think about the foundation of this whole enterprise, where you are supporting human rights defenders, but actually have team members thinking this way. I don't understand this, honestly. I just don't get it. So I think that's where I completely lost, like, where am I? Like, what are you even talking about? So if you are a trans supporting organization, how can you be bothered about making anti-trans feminists, so-called feminists, comfortable about you? Is that your prerogative? I don't think so. How do those two things exist at the same time? They can't. So, but yeah, that's the struggle. If you have the privilege to quit and do something else, do it. Take a stand, speak out. Because so many systems perpetuate because nobody really says anything. They say that, oh, my career will be compromised. True, that it could happen. My references will be compromised. Again, true, could happen. But all of us thinking that and not doing anything, I don't know, it's just frustrating to see that. And I did come across conversations which were not sex positive, which was not sex worker positive. And I'm like, okay, all of this is giving me a headache, and I don't understand how you can have these platforms and so much resources and function on these ideologies and claim to be feminist. I don't get it. And then it's a decision you make. Do I want to be associated with these folks or not? I mean, I don't want to castigate you if you decide to be there. What your reasons may be different, but I don't know. I found it very difficult. So aside from the whole toxicity, this was also my thing. Like, because I told you, like, when we were having a conversation, what are we doing? You know, sometimes it's like,
no clue.
Yeah, everybody's just winging it. I get it. But I would rather be closer to what is right than closer to this bullshit. You know, it annoys me when you want to gather all the plaudits of being a feminist organization, inclusive, intersectional, blah, blah, blah. And in private, this is what you are. It angers me that these are the people who have the privilege to speak up in these environments. It just bothers me. So yeah, I mean, I have experienced a lot of this groupism, this kind of, it's not a value delineation. It's just wrong. It's just, what you're saying doesn't belong in feminism. So don't, again, as I said, it's not a matter of semantics and your verbal nonsense. It's what you believe in. And how can that bias not affect how you decide to form something? How can it not affect whom you decide to employ, whom you decide to give out a contract to? You know, when you say decolonization, when was the last fucking time you actually did something which questioned the colonization of your language, of your beliefs? You still fucking say global south. Like, what the fuck is global south? I'm sorry if I'm like, this is like making my circuits like go off, but I'm like, I can't. Sometimes I listen to the terminology all over the place and I'm like, I want to scream. Because I see a lot of just jargon just being thrown around and not real deep work being done, you know. But in this environment, what do you do? I'm sorry. Yeah, I've just been babbling. I'm sorry. It's just...
Do not apologize, please. Here we welcome raves, rants, and all things in between. We welcome them.
When you asked about the job search thing, this is what bothers me. Like, if I encounter this environment again, what the hell am I going to do? Not that I'm like Miss Righteous out there, but I can't. How do you remain true to yourself?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of don't get why this is such a massive personality schism, how this can cause like a split within yourself. Because also I think, again, that memory point that I mentioned, very often when you enter new environments, you've kind of lost the memory of this experience of things that go against your value systems, and you want to approach something from a more positive perspective because you are new, you want to be included, and as a result of the memory, no, and again, it's memory is not an exact thing, so it's not like memory will go danger, person, danger, right? And I think this was my experience at my last workplace. This sense of grating against value systems, but your memory not allowing you to articulate why that grating is happening. Like you know who you are, then you enter a space and you're trying to be who they need you to be. And you forget. And then once you, and the thing is, it's not like you forget and all is well. You forget and all is fucked up. And then you keep wondering why the fuck is fucked up, right? And it takes you a while to make the connection. Oh, it fucked up because it fucked up. Not sure if I made any sense. Yeah, but
you know what annoyed me the most, Hina, when I got this job, I was 100% thankful. I felt lucky. I felt privileged.
Yes.
And in the end, when I heard these fucking fools talk like that, and I'm like, I was thankful for this. I really genuinely thought this is a better place, that this is going to be a newer experience in intersectionality or whatever. It isn't. You know how disappointment is a different thing, but how maddening it is to see a reflection of the same bullshit in different forms everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, you have an international platform. It's also a very small, incestuous sort of pool, you know, everybody knows everybody, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you co-signing each other's bullshit or are you ignoring it? And I don't know which is worse. Because if you're not challenging something and encouraging, motivating, forcing someone to do differently, then how is this space a feminist space? Because for me, feminist movements are the most fluid, most conducive to learning, changing, unlearning. Otherwise, it's not a feminist space for me. No matter what you think about feminism, of course, all that is a different conversation. Because for me, it doesn't make sense that this is your proclaimed identity and you are not even true to its foundational spirit. You know? So, yeah. So yeah, everything was just clashing in my head. And then I had to, on a daily basis, deal with the reality of working with these people and dealing with their attitudes and them talking about questioning power structures while them hugging their own power and, you know, basking in it. So I'm like, you know what, my head is anyway a confused space. This is just too much for me. And either I'm going to go out there and be shamelessly contradictory and not true to my values. Maybe life will be better there. I think, Hina, life will be better there. But I'm not able to do it. So yeah, that's where I am.
I feel you on a spiritual level. There's this meme I came across which has a cat that has its hand here going, I feel you in my meow meow. I feel you in my meow meow. Okay, that's the level of feeling that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's like every place you go to, you can see the bullshit, but you're forced to be there because of whatever other worldly, capitalistic, materialistic concerns. But you can't even commit to the facade and the charade because you can't. So what do? I'm telling you, being openly an asshole is so easy. It's so much better. I wish I was.
It doesn't happen instinctively. You can't fake it.
Yeah, I should have like been born like that.
Well, next time.
Too late.
In all of this angsting about work and midlife crises of our mid-30s, I think one of the things that we spoke about when we had our initial chat was about the lateness of our queer awakenings.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that a little bit before we run out of time. Not that we have a time limit, but yeah.
Oh my God, I just babbled so much about an issue which I really didn't want. Like, I was like, we will be talking about so much else, but I didn't think that I'm going to go on like one.
It's perfect. Like I said, rants are welcome. We love rants. We collect them. We show them. We share them.
And I've just been ranting and ranting about this issue. And every time like, especially while job seeking, it's like, how much bullshit can I tolerate? That is my...
There should be an app for that.
Yeah. Like, it's like you apply, and if you happen to get it, I'm like, can I tolerate this? So, yeah. I mean, there's no perfect organization there because there are no perfect humans there. But at least make an effort and don't be...
All employers out there, hear our prayer, make a fucking effort.
Like, don't say stuff which you clearly have no intention of seeing through. Don't look at us folks as being stupid or incapable just because we live with depression or ADHD. We are not. I mean, every day we fight against our demons, to pretend to be productive citizens of the world. So you need to harness our awesomeness because we really push through so much,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. What was the question? Queer.
Thank you for coming back to my question. It was about your queer awakening. I do not have a better phrase for it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's like a slow awakening. So it's like one lid opens and then the other lid opens.
Slow burns. We love slow burns.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody wakes up one day and like, balloons, I'm queer. It's never
cut a cake.
Let me cut a cake. From now on, it's this. So yeah, mine happened. I think it was again bubbling. I wasn't sure. Also my question in my head was, one, because I was surrounded by horrible men, and it was a legitimate question in my head. Why am I expected to only be with men? Is that a dictate I can't question? I'm not saying that that's what led me to my queer awakening, but it was a legitimate question in my head, that is that the only option available in my head, in my life? Like, can't I be attracted to anybody else? Like, can't I imagine a friendship which is special? Can't I imagine a life with a person who is exactly my gender or some other gender or something else, Like, why is that possible or not? So that questioning started when I, of course, was away from home. And of course, meeting women was so amazing. Like, women are so amazing. I sound stupid right now, but it just makes you feel that, okay, is this not possible? Is this not allowed? Initially that's what you're thinking. Like, why is this not allowed? Like, I feel so great with this person. So isn't that what relationships are supposed to be? Like legality, marriage, all of that is different, but just feeling at home with somebody, wanting to spend time, companionship, being understood. Why does it have to be such a rigid dictate of gender and whatever else that people think about? So I think that's when it started opening up. And for me, it was happening, like a more solid thing was happening more around like 26, 27. I felt like sort of ready. And In fact, I opened up to mom in her house, and the separation and all of that shit had that just happened. I was on medication. I had somehow clawed out of the whole depressive phase. And I'm like, what the hell? Anyway, everything is shit around us. And we're building it all up from the ground. So let me throw this in as well. So I told her, and she was like, okay. Like she wasn't like,
Hey,
yeah, she didn't faint.
Hmm.
She's like, okay, I don't get it, I think, but I'm willing to explore.
Yeah.
Because for her, it was like, we have done so much, we've sacrificed so much, we've come so far. I mean, come on, what we have to work for is our happiness. And if this is what is going to be, that's going to make you happy, then why not? And I think that was great. You know,
Yep.
that was one of the best responses I could have got. So I'm like, okay, cool. So then, you know, the tentative dating and just opening up to a lot of other folks. And that's when it started sort of happening. And like initially it was like I was thinking I'm bisexual. Then I was like, no, that doesn't really define me fully. So then I was, and then I read about the history of the term queer, how it has evolved, what it used to mean, how it has been reclaimed. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, that's what I am. I want there to be this fluidity and this slight confusion. And like, I don't want it to be something very, very sure, very, very rigid. That's why I identify as queer. So for me, gender expression, gender doesn't really matter.
Right.
And for me, the term also defines my politics, my activism, and so much more how I approach life. Also. It's not just my sexuality. It's me. It's just who I am. You know, I accept my, like, if I go to the base meaning of the word, I accept my weirdness. I am weird. I have weird ideas. I want to do weird things. But also, I don't want to subscribe just because something is being dictated out there.
Right.
Be it about love, relationship, following people, cult of personality, whatever. So queer made a lot of sense. And I think I started putting that out there around 29 or so. I guess I'm like an old woman when it comes to queer realizations, maybe. But
I was older, it's okay.
Ageism is another thing, you know.
Isn't
You
it?
should really like pick that as a topic with whoever else, some other amazing guest of yours.
We've done that in the episode before this one. Yeah.
Like, in the 30s, the way they talk about us, it's like, hello, excuse me, we're just in our 30s. Like, what did you expect women to be in their 30s? Like, you know, she's 30 and she looks like this. And I'm like, you have no perception of how women look and behave. And like, even in popular culture, so many things which are like couched as compliments. And I'm like, you have no clue about women or non-male persons sometimes at all. So yeah, it helped me shed that thing also, that, by 30 you should have had this, by 35 this. And I'm like, no, I'm having so many experiences and realizations.
Oh my God, so many realizations.
Like every day, it's like you said, let's pause it for some time.
Yeah, yes, please.
So yeah, you know what I think? This podcast is just me babbling. Are you sure this is going to be interesting?
So this is the intention of this podcast, is to be an archive of queer lives, because most of us do not have, we've been handed a cishet roadmap and it doesn't work for us. That's literally the line I put in my concept note. And I need this roadmap. So this is an archive which will hopefully be a roadmap. It doesn't need to make sense. Roadmaps don't always make sense. Right? Not that whatever you've said in this past hour hasn't made sense, but yeah, like I value everything that you're saying, and I value you taking this time to, rant at me. That's fine. Go ahead. Do it. People need to do that.
It really goes back to what you said about how being free or being strong on an everyday basis is. It's so freeing. It's so freeing to not subscribe. Like if you told me you can't be super femme, then I will go the other way and try something else. But now this is my look. Probably I do look femme, whatever. But I love this. This is by choice and not by a dictate, you know? And I can change. I don't have to be too, boxed in about a lot of things. And that makes me
Yeah.
really, really happy,
Hmm.
like understanding love, sex, romance, friendships, soulmates. I don't even know if they exist, but stuff like that, like concepts like that.
Yeah.
Like they were so regimented and so like, no, it's just this and this for
Yeah.
us. To be free and think, no, it could be anybody, and you are
Yeah.
free to look at anybody is so freeing and wonderful because it makes you look at people differently. It makes you want to explore goodness and love and
Hmm.
closeness in other people, which I would not have otherwise, right? Because I'd be
Hmm.
like, oh, my mission is this, so this is what I'm going to look for,
Yeah.
and this is where I
Yeah.
stop, and
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, it's so freeing. So I think my queer awakening was not just about the particulars of my sexual attraction or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was also this. It was like so many doors just flying open. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't have to look at anything
Hmm.
uh, as I was told in such a strict, unbending way.
Mm-hmm.
Because things can change, because my identity also changed, my language changed. Every day you discover something. And I'm like, that's amazing. It's such a human thing to be, that it's changing and it's not static and boring.
I think so. The last conversation I had with Angela, who's from the USA,
Ah,
and
yeah.
I think Angela spoke about the same thing of this sense of openness
Mm.
that happens in your. I mean, the official coming out is a separate thing, but just the sense of
Right.
openness when you accept your authenticity, and
Yeah.
I think that's really, very often queer identity is reduced, like you said, to sexual attraction. Who are you attracted to and who are you not attracted to is what it defines, which is why most media need queer people to be partnered in order to display their queerness. But I think the sense of freeing, the sense of I do not fit into a box, which does not make me wrong, it makes the box wrong, or it makes the box inapplicable.
Yeah.
And I think that's really vital for us as queer people to realize that's the whole thing. That's the experience.
And I think as a survivor who has gone through like different kinds of violence, I feel I needed a different view into masculinity,
Mm.
because men were the perpetrators in my life. So for
Yes.
me, masculinity, though I understand what toxic masculinity is and what it means and how it affects us,
Mm.
but I didn't even know what masculinity is in the real sense, and what forms it could take, what it could entail, and how it could be bent and how it could be questioned.
Yeah.
So having friends who identify as male and who put nail polish or loved my ring and wanted to put my ring in their fingers, it seems like very blasé things to happen, but these are important insights into
Yeah.
so many things.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was like, is it only aggression? Is it only this or that?
Right.
And of course, as a GBV activist, I understand. I'm not, saying anything, but I also got perspectives into it where it was different,
Hmm.
and it was surprising, and it was so refreshing,
Hmm.
and it was easier to accept, because by then it was like, okay, yeah, it can be different, because I
Hmm.
am different and I am embracing my difference. And this makes me happy because I can look at so many things differently. And yeah, as Angela said, openness is just, yeah, you can't explain that, because when you're like going through trainings or stuff like that, we have to be very pedantic about it, but you really can't explain what it feels like when it's out there, when you don't have to explain, when you don't have to restrict yourself, when it's just different. It's just so different. So yeah, it happened late for me, and it's still ongoing, and it's wonderful. It really is. It doesn't matter whether I'm partnered or not, whether I'm it just is different. And I went from not having language for it to putting it on my CV, on my LinkedIn, identifying it and connecting it to my professional roles as writer editor, because it does affect how I write. It does affect how I edit. It does affect how I present myself as an employee, manager, whatever. It influences so much, and it makes me happy that I've been able to come to a place where I can be so open about it, and also find a different community with it. The conversations are different, the openness is different.
Yeah, and when you come back to straight spaces for work purposes, you can't understand what they're talking about.
I just thought about this colleague who said, "Hey, we are not that bad," or some shit like that. I feel the need to say that. I never said you're bad. Like, I literally was just saying something like, "Oh, this language is problematic," something like that. That was a conversation. Like, hey, all of us are not bad. Like, who cares? Like, this is not about you.
Yeah, I recently reconnected with some of my school friends, and it was the first time in a really long time I found myself going, "Oh no, you can't say that. Oh no, don't talk like that. No, don't." And I'm like, "Wait, what is it? When did I become the police person of this space?"
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Anywho, one of the things that we had spoken about, which we do on every podcast episode, is request the guest to provoke or provide a prompt to the listeners. Is there something that you've thought of in this context?
Is this like a question? Does it have to be a question, or?
It could be anything. It could be a thought. It could be something that they can respond to in any which way they choose.
Okay. So, because like connected to all that I said, and I'm coming back to this question of privilege, I want to ask the listeners, whoever is engaging with you, what was one thing that you never really thought of as being a privilege, but later realized it was a privilege? Like, we understand, say, money, now with a lot of amazing activism, we understand caste. Not that we shouldn't have understood it, but it was never in our conversation. So there are a lot of these things. So which was one thing which you sort of ignored and never thought about, but because of now conversations and life experiences, you think, oh, that is a privilege. Like today on one parenting page on Instagram, one person had written that growing up with non-abusive parents is a privilege that people don't understand, like in a calmer household. So like everyday things like, oh, we discussed, I don't know, our day, happy things at the dining table. That's amazing privilege to me. Like somebody bothered to ask me what I went through. Like nobody asked me that. So yeah, that's my question. I didn't formulate it very well, but yeah, a thing which you think is privilege now, but you never thought earlier is
right.
Is
yeah. I've noted it down, and they can play this part of the recording. And is there something that you wish I had asked, or you want to talk about, or something that I didn't know enough to ask about? So much is in there.
I think caregiving is also something that I'm realizing is because it's becoming a strong part of my life now. And what a completely bonkers space it is, because there are so many ups and downs there. You feel so helpless, you feel so trapped sometimes. uh so yeah, and also i'm caregiving uh, I'm a caregiver to a person who's also a survivor, who's also dealing with a lot of outfall of that trauma,
Yeah.
behaviors that have come because of that trauma. So I
Yes.
think what people don't understand, and I highlight this anywhere I get a mic to speak about GBV, is that it doesn't stop. It doesn't have a stopping point. The
Mm.
trauma that
Mm.
you um, live through, so it doesn't end when you say dissolve that relationship or get out of that house or divorce a
Mm.
person, whatever. It stays with you, and it
Mm.
manifests in so many ways, colors so many of your behaviors. So you live with it and you have to work on it and unlearn it. And as a
Mm.
caregiver, I find myself so conflicted so many times, because sometimes it's a clash between her trauma and my trauma.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people, uh, they understand caregiving maybe in the physical sense, but also there is this, feeling like, oh, I am cutting down on social life because I have to stay home. My savings are in jeopardy because it's out of control, stuff like that. So that has been like a recent realization, along with the realization, of course, that your parents are getting older and things are
Yeah.
not the same. They're not
Yeah.
young persons anymore. Their bodies are changing, their needs are
Yeah.
changing. So, yeah, I think, yeah, caregiving is something maybe that you can explore sometime.
I you mentioned this, the clash of the traumas, as it were.
Mhm.
Is there like a moment you can tell us about, just to illustrate that point?
Yeah, it happens more often than like both of us live. Like I have diagnosed anxiety. My mother, of course, has it, but
Was. Mm.
she has never really taken medication for it. But she has gone to therapy and apparently she copes with it well. That's what the doctor said. And she is like,
Mm.
okay, you're coping with it well. Work on it and continue with whatever you're doing.
Mm.
So sometimes when she gets anxious, so there is my need to support her and
Mm.
understand her anxiety, but her anxiety makes me anxious.
Yeah, that's
So
contagious.
yeah, and the thing is, for me, I get I get viscerally triggered when I see her crying, when I hear
Mm.
her crying. So that really starts, messing with my head. So even
Right.
though I want to be empathetic and understanding of anxiety and not whatever blame her for it, but
Right.
I get triggered because of
Mm.
that. So our
Right.
anxieties clash often,
Mm. Mm.
you know so I sometimes feel very guilty that maybe I'm forcing her to clamp down on her feelings so that I can, you know
Yeah.
feel okay. But then again, it's the confusing stage, like what do you do, like what the hell do you do? Because I'm still here to make the decisions, do the next things, and I have to be okay, but I
Mm.
can't disregard and invalidate what she is feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's sometimes tough, because sometimes I have to like really shut it down, like, mom, you can't do this right now because I have to, get you to the hospital or sign these papers or do something. So I really
Mm.
really can't deal with these things. But sometimes, of course, I can't and shouldn't do that, because to invalidate that is wrong,
Mm.
because she is also expressing and dealing with the situation as she can at that moment.
Mm.
So yeah, so that clash is quite common, you
Mm.
know. So I sometimes feel bad that no, don't cry, because that sound like starts like it literally gives me palpitations still, because I
Yeah.
heard that a lot in my childhood. So for me, those are like alarm bells, that I have to wake up and go check on her. So I sometimes feel bad that is she not able to cry because I am, reacting to it. So yeah, you live with that weird space of guilt and self-preservation in a way. So I just tell her that, listen, that the problem here is it's the two of us and both of us can't collapse at the same time. One of us has to be standing. So unfortunately, a lot of times I have to tell her to just be a little, because I'm like, okay, if something happens, you probably won't even be able to call a cab. It's a practical matter also. So I'll be the one who'll be able to be functional. So yeah, I mean, I guess you get it. It's just, yeah. So I don't want her to feel that she can't express or feel. But it's some moments, honestly, it's almost inconvenient, because we can't just be clashing like who will get the stuff done, because there is stuff to be done.
There is protocol to follow, and then there is the emotional fallout, and caregiving is the constant negotiation between the two.
Definitely. So sometimes I have a meeting in like a half an hour, and if she is having a reaction, so I'm like, I really can't do this now, because what if I'm not able to recover in half an hour? I have to be like, at least pretend to be normal there, I have to listen. I can't really be haggard and, all over the place. So yeah, sometimes you have to force that. So yeah, I mean, and it goes against what we preach and what we talk about support. But then there are these everyday situations where you feel really, really helpless. Did you say you had a hypoglycemic?
Hyperglycemic episode. Yes, I believe your mother had the opposite.
Yeah, I cannot tell you, Hina. I think my soul like left my body or something, because I didn't know what to do. And it was a consequence of her not listening to me and not eating well. So in the hospital, in the ICU, where clearly I can't say anything to her, I felt like I was boiling on the inside, because one, I'm grateful she's okay. And second, I'm so angry that you have created situations which is adding to my mental health struggles, and anyway, it's been difficult because already a lot of stuff is happening, and then you bring this in, and that is also a negotiation, because you're constantly like, okay, I'm responsible for it, so I have to do it. But also, why the fuck am I so responsible for it? I'm like making all sorts of sacrifices and probably losing out on a lot of things. I mean, that's what you think. That may not be true, but that's what you assume.
You need something to kind of pin on at the moment of stress.
So there is this thing that, okay, this person is dependent on me for certain things. So you feel that love and concern, but you also feel a lot of anger. And I've learned to be open about it. And I also tell my mama about it, that listen, what you did was unacceptable. You just put me through the ringer for nothing, and you can't do this. You just can't bank on the fact that I'm standing here and be so careless about yourself. I feel taken advantage of that way. So this navigation, right, it's difficult. Caregiving is, I'm sure, never ever easy, but both of us being survivors, both of us dealing with our traumas, and it can get really, really tricky. I'm sure there are days when she feels compelled to put up a happy facade because I am having a bad day or I am anxious. I understand that it's unfair, but sometimes you just don't know what to do. What do you do? So yeah, that's a clash.
I feel compelled to not end on this note. So I'm going to ask you, so what are some of the happier moments of caregiving, of living with your mom, of being the only person in each other's lives who is the primary per se? So what are
Yeah.
some of the big moments, some happy moments?
Happy moments. Yes, we have been, like, our relationship has evolved a lot. I really empathize with her struggle because she keeps talking about, say, missing her mom, whom she lost when she was just 12. So she's like, I feel that deeper need for a mother
Mm-hmm.
whom I've not had most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of things that she has opened up about has brought us closer. I'm not saying I'm 100% open with her, but I am a lot more open than I used to be. So we share a
Yeah.
lot. And we are not just talking about, okay, this happened and that happened. We are saying, okay, I felt this and I felt that.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's quite a wonderful progression. And I told you, getting up in the morning, seeing her happy, healthy is so deeply satisfying and makes me so happy, because there's no fear in her steps. She's not worried about the next meal, or I don't know, the what money she has to spend or whatever else that used to, consume her. uh, it's literally like I can see her face in a different light, so that is joyful.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that both of us are readers. We love engaging with literature. She reads a lot of Malayalam books and writes in Malayalam. And I love that she is exploring her own friendships and her own projects and stuff like that.
What's the
I
last
think
thing she read and what's the last thing you read?
I read a Jeffrey Archer book. Should I be ashamed of myself?
This will be edited out of the podcast. Um,
I was in the hospital. I was sleeping on a bed where they sometimes forgot to give me a pillow, so cut me a break. I got this book. It was shit, but it was pastime. And also, I have this weird true crime obsession, and this was about a serial killer. So I was like,
of course it was.
okay. So I loved it. I don't know, some Malayalam book she read, but she has I think she has more books in the house than I have.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that has been wonderful to see. I also realized that we have become a little codependent. I don't know, is that a good word to use among daughter and mother? I don't know.
Of course it
But
is. Whatever word works.
so, but it's good. I think we do empower each other's singlehood, and she's very happy at my singleness and all of that, and expresses it often. um yeah, I will tell you, Hina, I think you caught me at a time that though I'm in the midst of a job search and that can get really stressful and the rejections are heartbreaking, but you really caught me at a time when I feel genuinely blessed. I feel it's been a long, long journey. And I'm so happy that am I safe and happy. I'm happy that I am safe and happy. That every day we wake up in a beautiful house. We are like, okay, we withstood so much for this, you know. So when we like, especially when I start worrying about the future, my mom's like, you know what, you are living the future which you were worried about like yesterday in the past. So it's possible that things can change and get better. So I'm glad that we both are survivors in that sense, that no matter what, we're able to look forward to something better. We are hopeful enough to have ambitions. You know, I probably it would have been easy to lose that, but I'm glad we didn't. So yeah.
I'm going to ask you for pictures of your plants and of you and your mom.
Yes. Oh my God, I need an urban jungle. I need a lot more plants, and I'm going to do that. After ending the podcast, do you want to still keep chatting? Because I felt that I didn't hear anything from you. It was just me rambling.
I will need to take a pee break though.
Go ahead. You're allowed to pee.